There's something magical about rivers. This idea that this melting snow and ice at the top of a mountain is able to make its way to these lowlands and form these huge waterways is really quite cool. I live right near the Delaware River, and it always amazes me how many plants and animals call the river their home. To pass the site where George Washington crossed the Delaware River, and I'm just in awe about how massive and powerful these waterways are and how important they are to us as humans. And so when Buttonshy announced River Wild, the latest entry in their solo 18-card series of games, designed by Stephen Aramini, one of the 3 developers on Sprawlopolis, I was really excited to check it out. I have a long history of really enjoying Buttonshy games, and so having their twist on filling out a river with 18 cards was really appealing to me. So let me show you guys how it plays, and then I'll be right back to let you know what I think of it. So here we have River Wild in our standard Buttonshy wallet. Very nice blue and pink color combination. I like this kind of paintbrush kind of like font that is the Wild is in. It's a small part of the game, but I always get a kick about how well matched the kind of cover and text goes with the game. I appreciate whoever in the art department does that. It always adds a little bit more flavor as you're picking up the game. So here we got our standard array of 18 cards. We have our instruction booklet. We have a scoring and reference card, and we're going to have one tile or card here that is going to be our starting card. So the name of the game is River Wild, and your primary goal is going to be building this river from your starting mountain spot. So the setup is pretty simple, where you're going to have a hand of 3 cards, and then the deck here so that you can kind of see what's coming up. This is going to be really reminiscent to anyone who plays solo Sprawlopolis or something like that, where it kind of is the same setup here. And so let me show you guys kind of what's on these cards just to give you an idea of what you're going to be trying to do as you place them. So every card is going to have a couple different elements. And there's 4 types of animals in the game. There's these yellow jackalopes, purple unicorns, green frogs, and red dragons. And those are going to be important as you try to score off of some different conditions that I'll get onto in a little bit here. There's going to be this kind of pink river that's running down the card, and then there might be a couple of different land masses that are these kind of like light blue color. And there's also going to be these little rune stones in certain parts of the river. And again, those will be important when we talk about scoring. Finally, there's a couple cards that are going to have mountains on them, which you can see here. There's a mountain on this card, and that's going to take us into the actual rules for where you can place your river cards. And so there's a couple of kind of core rules of where you can place these. The biggest one is that river always has to meet another river, or it has to meet a mountain. River can never meet land, and you always have to be expanding the river. You can't place cards vertically above where the river already is. You can form them horizontally, right? Think of kind of like a bunch of different branching paths on the river, but you can never go back up. You gotta go with the flow here. Now, the main goal of what you're trying to do is forming what's called protected lands. And what protected lands are areas of land that are completely surrounded by river. And so let me build an example here. So this is an example of a protected land. You can see you have 4 pieces of land here, entirely covered by river, and you're going to score 2 points at the end of the game for having a protected land. Just flat out, you get 2 points. Now here I've built an example of a little bit more of an advanced protected land, just to give you an idea of how the scoring is going to work. So let's say this was your only protected land at the end of the game. That's really ideally not how you want it to go, but for the sake of example, let's roll with it. So the first thing you're going to look at each piece of the land that makes up the protected area. So you can see we have a frog here, a jackalope here, a dragon here, a scoring condition here, a scoring here, and a scoring here. So let's take a look at this scoring here. And this says that for every jackalope and frog that we have, we'll either score 2 or 4 points. Now the reason those points are there is that if the protected land is your largest in the game, you would score the number on top. So you would get 2 points for every time you meet that condition. If it was on a protected land smaller than your largest, then you would get 4 points. And this is a kind of way to balance out both having huge sprawling protected lands where you're able to fulfill conditions multiple times versus maybe smaller protected lands where you're only doing it once. So you're not penalized and you just kind of still get a good amount of points. And I think that balances out very nicely throughout the game of having smaller protected lands and also having some larger lands where you're kind of really getting greedy with scoring conditions. And it's a very nice balance. So in this example, we're looking for jackalope and frogs. So we have one pair, we would get 2 points. And here we have dragon and jackalope, which we also meet. So that would also be 2 points there. So that's a pretty good scoring there. So the other one you're going to see here is each, and that is if you have one of each animal on the protected land, which unfortunately we don't fit here, so we would not score any points. Now the runestone here acts as a wild, so if we had another frog or another jackalope, we would be able to contribute towards one of those scoring conditions. And so these are really going to be key to try to make up some of those points. Especially if you can get these adjacent to 2 protected lands, they can contribute to both of them, and you're really able to get quite a bit of points there. But that's just kind of a quick example of how the scoring works here. And it can get really crazy, right? You can go a lot of branching paths, you can do big protected lands, you could do sprawl protecting lands. There's a lot of cool flexibility with placing the cards here. You can see even in this little example, it's starting to spread quite a bit. But it really invokes kind of that really fun that a lot of tile laying games have, where you start with this mountain and you see it grow and grow and expand in front of you. And I think that really adds to that cool feeling of the river growing. You have a lot of these little habitat islands. It's really cool. So that's pretty much the scoring. You can see that on the card here. There's a nice reference here of reminding you that you get 2 points for every protected land, how the yellow and white numbers work, the type of animals, and then the other type of scoring conditions. One of each type, or one of 5 of any type of animals. And this is actually very difficult to get because there's 4 of each. So to get any of 5 types of animals, you need runestones to actually complete that. So that's a really tough one to do. On the back here, you can see some of the scoring thresholds that you're trying to reach. I unfortunately, after like a dozen or so games, I'm still like a point short of the harmonious habitat. This is a tricky game. I would say this is probably up there as one of the harder kind of puzzly Buttonshy games, but still a lot of fun. So that's kind of the setup, general overview, and how you're actually going to be placing and scoring these nice looking river tiles. And if you're enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot to have you guys around the channel, and it motivates me a little bit more every time I get a failing score in River Wild. So I should get one thing out of the way. River Wild is a tough game. I like to think of myself as a pretty grizzled veteran of the 3 Opolis games, and River Wild I thought was harder than all 3 of those. Being able to form those protected lands and really maximize where those animals are going is really tough. I think keeping track of how many animals are left in your deck is really critical to that. And I think the more you play it, I think by 10 to 12 games, I was pretty consistently getting to at least the 2nd tier of points, which I thought was pretty okay. But this is a challenging game. I think the other thing I really enjoy, and I think that as a river dork, I kind of enjoyed, is that the actual feeling of building out these branching areas really feels good. It felt really satisfying. Sometimes when you play some of these other tile laying games, there's a lot of restrictions, and I thought that having these branching waterways, having the mountains to start new waterways, really felt like a natural way to keep branching out. Maybe not always the most effective way to score points, but it always was enjoyable to play. Even when I wasn't scoring great, it was that kind of feeling of playing like Carcassonne or some other tile laying games, where at the end of it you build this huge thing and it looks pretty and it looks cool and you had fun building it. So I think even when you're scoring low in this game, it is still enjoyable. Now the actual way you are scoring, right? The 2 primary ways being forming protected lands and then scoring off of those kind of different conditions that each protected land has. I think that they're balanced pretty well. I think that the 2-tiered system of scoring off your largest protected land and then scoring more points if it is smaller than your largest protected land is a nice balance between spreading out but also trying to do combos and getting multiple scoring off of one protected land. But just overall, I think it's a solid addition. I think that Buttonshy has a good solid pedigree of these 18-card puzzly solo games, and I think this is a great addition in that line of games. If you like the Opolis games, if you like Circle the Wagon, if you like some of these other little tile laying puzzle games, I think that River Wild will fit really nicely in that collection. Especially, I think it just looks really nice. The kind of pastel-y colors, it just feels nice to play. I would say one maybe negative is that it is a little bit of a space hog. It is a really long game. I think the only game that's longer that I have is Under Falling Skies, which has an abnormally long board. And if you go a certain way with this river, you can eat up an entire table's worth of space going downwards. And so if it's a space concern, just be mindful of that when you're playing it. It's not something you can play in your lap or something or on a train, because it will take up a little bit more space. But again, overall, I think it was really enjoyable. I think the scoring is pretty straightforward. It is challenging, but again, it always feels fun. And I was surprised how few games have the river theme tag on BGG. I think the most notable one is Niagara, which won the Spiel des Jahres back in the early 2000s. But I feel like rivers are underutilized. I want to see more games with rivers. If you have any favorite games that utilize a river in the game some way, let me know. I want to see how else these can be used. Also, did you know that Buttonshy has a store in Haddonfield, New Jersey? I'm only about half an hour away and I've been there a couple of times, and it is a really awesome store. It's really cozy. If you've ever seen them at any stores, or any conventions rather, they kind of have this garden theme to it, and the whole store is like the board game garden. And it's just really cozy, it's really kind of inviting, and so if you're ever passing through the Philly area or you live nearby, be sure to check it out. So if this game seemed interesting to you, be sure to swing by the store and pick up a copy and chat with some of the Buttonshy folks. They're all pretty nice and very, very welcoming. Also, you might notice that the walls are a bit bare behind me. Me and my wife recently purchased a house, which is why there hasn't been any videos in a little while, but we're finally getting settled in. I have somewhat of a space to record and play games again, and so I'm looking forward to getting back on track. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you have a chance to try River Wild. If you try it, be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing for more board game content. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one.